What if I told you that the very thing you've been trying to burn, cut, and eliminate from your body is the very thing that once saved humanity from extinction? Yes, fat, the tissue most of us spend our lives fearing, or judging in the mirror, or trying desperately to lose, might actually be your greatest survival ally. Sounds crazy, right? But here's the shocking truth. Without fat, our ancestors would have starved, our babies wouldn't have survived their first winter, and your brain, the very thing that makes you, you, might never have developed the way it did. Today we're about to flip everything you thought you knew about fat upside down, because it's not just a storage depot for excess calories. It's a living, breathing organ with secrets that could change the way you see your body forever. Welcome to the Wellness Way, where we go deeper than the surface to uncover the truth behind your health. If you're ready to challenge the myths, uncover the science, and finally see fat for what it really is, then stay with me to the very end of this video. And before we dive in, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Your support keeps us creating powerful content that transforms the way you think about your body and your health. When I think about fat, my first reaction is probably the same as yours. I picture that stubborn belly bulge that refuses to go away, the pinch of skin at the waistline that makes jeans uncomfortable, or the frustration of stepping on the scale and seeing a number I don't like. For most of my life, fat was the enemy. It was something to fight, to burn, to cut down at all costs. Every ad, every fitness program, every before and after photo hammered in the same message. Fat is bad, fat is ugly, fat is weakness. But what if we've been looking at it all wrong? That question hit me like a shock the first time I stumbled upon research that challenged everything I thought I knew. Imagine this. If it weren't for fat, our species, human beings, might not even exist today. Sounds absurd, right? How could the very thing we're told to fight against be the same thing that once saved us? And yet, the deeper I looked, the more undeniable it became. Let's rewind thousands of years. Picture our ancestors, not in gyms or supermarkets, but out in the wild. Hunting wasn't guaranteed. Some days they brought back food, but many days they came home empty-handed. There were no refrigerators, no fast food drive-thrus, no pantries stocked with snacks. Survival depended on finding food and, more importantly, on what the body could do when food was nowhere to be found. This is where fat comes in. Fat wasn't a curse. It was a lifeline. It was the body's way of storing away energy for the brutal stretches when no food was available. Those soft layers under the skin, they were the reason hunters could keep going for days without eating. They were the reason mothers could keep nursing their children through lean seasons. They were the reason we didn't simply starve and vanish like so many other species that couldn't adapt. And it wasn't just about energy. Fat kept people warm through freezing nights when firewood was scarce. It cushioned organs against injury when life was rougher, harder, and far more dangerous than it is now. It gave us a biological advantage that no tool or weapon could replace. Here's the part that blew my mind. Even a lean human today can carry tens of thousands of calories in fat reserves, enough to survive for weeks without eating. Think about that. That spare tire you hate looking at in the mirror, that's actually your body's survival bank account, filled with emergency rations. It's a backup system that once meant the difference between life and death. And then there's the connection between fat and our brains. Scientists believe one of the reasons humans developed such large, powerful brains compared to other primates was because of fat. Our ancestors carried more body fat than chimps or gorillas. And this reserve of energy allowed our brains to grow bigger, to evolve faster, and to set us apart as the most intelligent species on the planet. Without fat, the very thing that makes us human, our thoughts, our creativity, our problem solving, might never have developed. When I learned this, I had to stop and ask myself, why have I spent so much of my life hating something that literally built me into who I am? The truth is, fat has been misunderstood. We've been told a one-sided story. Yes, too much fat can be harmful, leading to disease and health problems. But the other side of the story, the side almost no one talks about, is that fat is also essential. It's not just extra padding or stored calories. It's an organ with real functions that keep us alive. And here's another fascinating layer. The story of fat isn't the same for everyone. Men and women carry fat differently because evolution designed them with different survival roles. Men, whose primary job in the survival playbook was hunting and protecting, were built to carry less fat and more muscle. Women, whose bodies had to prepare for pregnancy and breastfeeding in environments where food was never guaranteed, were designed to carry more fat. That's why a healthy woman can have nearly double the body fat percentage of a healthy man. And that difference isn't weakness. It's a superpower. It's nature's way of ensuring the survival of both mother and child. In fact, when a woman's body fat drops too low, something remarkable happens. Her menstrual cycle can stop. It's the body's way of saying, I don't have enough reserves to sustain a pregnancy. This isn't the right time. Far from being broken, this is one of the most intelligent survival mechanisms built into the human body. The more I dug into this, the more I realized how shallow and misleading our cultural narrative around fat has been. We obsess over how it looks, but we ignore what it does. We fear it, but we forget how much we owe to it. That's when I started to shift my perspective. Instead of seeing fat as a constant enemy, I started to see it as something more complicated, something worth respecting, even appreciating. I began to imagine the bodies of my ancestors running across open plains fueled by their fat reserves, surviving winters and famines, passing down their resilience through generations until I was born. That fat wasn't shameful. It was heroic. It was the reason I get to sit here today, even have the luxury to complain about how my genes fit. And yet, here we are, living in an age of abundance where food is everywhere, comfort is guaranteed, and fat often accumulates in ways that harm us instead of helping us. The irony is almost painful. What once saved us can now work against us, if we don't understand it. So maybe the real question isn't, how do I get rid of all my fat? But rather, how do I learn to live in balance with it? That's the journey I want to take you on. To explore fat not as a one-dimensional villain, but as a complex, essential part of our biology. To uncover the hidden roles it plays in our health, our history, and even our identity. Because when you strip away the stigma and really see fat for what it is, you start to realize it's not the enemy at all. It's one of the reasons we're still here. And honestly, once I saw fat this way, I could never look at my own body the same again. The deeper I went into learning about fat, the more I realized I had only ever seen the tip of the iceberg. Growing up, the conversation about fat was always about appearance, how it looked on the body, how much we should try to lose, how quickly we could burn it off. But almost no one ever talked about what fat actually is. And the moment I understood the biology behind it, my whole perspective shifted. Let me start simple. Fat isn't just a blob of extra weight sitting on your body. It's a type of tissue, called adipose tissue, that is alive, dynamic, and shockingly intelligent. It's made up of special cells called adipocytes. Think of each adipocyte like a tiny warehouse. Inside, it stores little droplets of energy in the form of triglycerides, which are basically fat molecules. These droplets push everything else in the cell aside, like the nucleus, and just sit there waiting for the moment your body needs fuel. That may sound basic, but when you stop and really think about it, it's mind-blowing. Your body has an entire system of cells whose main purpose is to act like living batteries. When food is scarce, when energy is low, when your survival depends on it, those batteries switch on. Without them, you wouldn't last very long. But adipose tissue isn't just a storage unit, and this is where things start to get fascinating. Fat is also an endocrine organ, which means it produces hormones. Yes, hormones. The same way your thyroid or pancreas does. For years I thought of fat as passive, like a couch potato just sitting there. But in reality, it's constantly communicating with the rest of your body. It releases signals that control hunger, metabolism, even inflammation. Take leptin, for example. This hormone is produced by fat cells and tells your brain when you've had enough to eat. Or adiponectin, another hormone, which helps your body respond better to insulin and has anti-inflammatory effects. Fat even has the ability to convert certain male hormones into estrogens, which plays a big role in reproductive health. That's not just padding, that's sophisticated biology at work. And here's where it gets even more interesting. Not all fat is the same. There are different types of fat, and they serve very different purposes. Most of what adults carry is white fat. Picture it like insulation in the walls of a house. It stores energy and keeps the body warm by preventing heat from escaping. White fat is the reason your body can handle cold nights or skipped meals. But then there's brown fat, and this one honestly blew me away. Brown fat isn't about storage, it's about production. Packed with mitochondria, the tiny engines of your cells, brown fat doesn't save energy. It burns it to generate heat. Why does that matter? Because newborn babies, for example, don't have the muscle strength to shiver like adults do when they're cold. Instead, they rely on brown fat to keep them alive. Without it, their tiny bodies wouldn't survive their first winter. Even adults still carry some brown fat around the neck and shoulders, though much less than babies. It's like a built-in furnace we barely even notice. Learning about this, I started to feel a kind of respect for my body that I never had before. It's not just storing fat out of laziness or because I had an extra slice of pizza. It's running a complex system with multiple types of fat, each with its own unique role in keeping me alive and functioning. Now, let's talk about one of the biggest myths out there, the idea that the less fat, the better. I used to believe that too. I thought being as lean as possible was the ultimate sign of health. But that's not how the body works. For men, a healthy body fat percentage might fall between 10 and 15%. For women, it's closer to 20 to 25%. And that difference isn't random, it's evolutionary. Men were built to use more of their energy for muscle because their role in early human survival revolved around hunting and protecting. Women, on the other hand, were built with the capacity to carry life. Pregnancy demands hundreds of extra calories every day, and breastfeeding demands even more. Fat wasn't optional for women, it was essential. And the body has ways of protecting itself when fat gets too low. I remember reading about how women who drop below a certain body fat percentage can stop menstruating altogether. At first, that sounded alarming, but then I realized what it really meant. It's the body's way of saying, you don't have the reserves to support a pregnancy right now. It's not safe. That's not failure. That's survival intelligence built into our DNA. So no, less fat isn't always better. In fact, too little fat can be just as dangerous as too much. The truth lies somewhere in the middle. That's where the Goldilocks principle comes in, a concept that fat has to be just right. Not too little, not too much, but balanced. And here's the challenge. In the modern world, balance is harder than ever. Our ancestors fought to get enough calories to store fat. We fight to avoid having too many. The environment has flipped, but the biology hasn't. For me, this realization was a turning point. I stopped chasing extremes. Instead of aiming to burn it all off, I started focusing on balance. That means eating in a way that fuels me without overloading my fat stores. It means moving my body regularly, not as punishment for what I ate, but as a way to keep my system working the way it's supposed to. It means recognizing that fat isn't the enemy, it's the excess or the lack of it that causes problems. And maybe most importantly, it means shifting my mindset. I no longer look at fat and think, I need to get rid of you. I look at it and think, how do I work with you? How do I keep you in check so you can do your job without getting in the way of my health? Because here's the truth. Fat is complex. It's not all good and it's not all bad. But once you understand the science, once you see the full picture, you realize that the war against fat is a war against yourself. And that's a war you'll never win. The better path, the only path really, is learning balance. Respecting fat for what it does, keeping it in the healthy range your body was designed for, and letting it serve the role it was meant to play. And honestly, that feels like freedom. By the time I reached this part of my journey into understanding fat, I realized something important. This isn't just about weight or appearance. It's about history, survival, and even the future of medicine. Fat isn't just a part of our bodies. It's a part of our story as human beings. And when you zoom out, the role it has played in shaping who we are becomes even more profound. Think about it. Compared to other primates, chimps, gorillas, orangutans, humans carry more body fat. On the surface, that might sound like a disadvantage. After all, carrying extra fat slows us down, right? But here's the twist. Scientists believe this very trait, this higher fat percentage, is one of the reasons we were able to evolve such large, powerful brains. Brains are expensive, not in money, but in energy. They burn through calories faster than almost any other organ in the body. To support that growth, our ancestors needed reliable energy reserves. Fat provided that. Those stores of energy fueled not just the body, but the mind. Without fat, maybe we would have stayed like the other primates. Strong and agile, sure, but without the capacity for language, culture, invention, and imagination. That realization hit me hard. Fat, the very thing we often hate, may be the reason I can sit here today and even ask questions about life, science, or health. It may be the reason I can dream, create, and connect with you. But it's not just about the past. The story of fat is also about the present and the future. Modern science has been uncovering incredible insights about fat, especially brown fat. Remember, this is the type of fat that burns energy to produce heat instead of storing it. For babies, it's essential for survival. But in adults, scientists are starting to see it as a potential tool in fighting obesity and metabolic diseases. Imagine being able to activate your brown fat to burn calories without even moving a muscle. Imagine harnessing your body's own furnace to regulate weight, improve blood sugar, and protect against disease. Some studies have already shown that exposing the body to cold temperatures can stimulate brown fat activity. Others are exploring medications or therapies that might safely turn on this hidden power. To me, that's both exciting and humbling. It's a reminder that the body already has incredible tools. We just need to learn how to use them. And then there's visceral fat, the type that wraps around our internal organs. For years it was seen only as dangerous, and yes, too much of it is linked to disease. But even here, nuance exists. Visceral fat produces hormones and signals that can be useful in small amounts. The problem is balance. Too much tips the scale toward inflammation and illness. Again and again, I keep coming back to that word, balance. It's almost as if the human body is always whispering, don't go to extremes, stay in the middle. Looking ahead, I can't help but wonder how our relationship with fat will continue to evolve. Right now, we live in a world of abundance. Food is everywhere, comfort is everywhere, and as a result, fat has become more burden than blessing for many people. But what if the future holds a different story? What if, through science, we learn to not only respect fat, but also guide it, activating the kinds we need, controlling the amounts we don't, and using it as a tool for healing? That possibility excites me. It also makes me reflect on how often we oversimplify things in health and wellness. We love black and white answers. Fat is bad, fat is good, carbs are evil, protein is king. But biology doesn't work that way. The human body is full of paradoxes and balances, contradictions and harmonies. And fat might just be the best example of that. So where does that leave me personally? Honestly, with a sense of humility. I used to look at fat as nothing but an obstacle. Now I see it as part of a system so much larger and smarter than I ever gave it credit for. It's not about loving fat blindly or fearing it irrationally. It's about respecting it, about understanding that it has roles, purposes and stories that go far beyond how I look in the mirror. And maybe that's the bigger lesson here. The more we understand something, the less power it has to scare us. Knowledge takes away the fear, and in its place, it leaves appreciation. But let me leave you with this thought. If fat is both a villain and a hero, if it has been our lifeline in the past, our challenge in the present, and potentially our medicine in the future, then maybe the real question is this: how do you choose to see it? Do you see fat as an enemy to fight, or a complex partner in your journey toward health? That's the conversation I want us to have. Because once we start asking these questions, once we step beyond the myths and into the truth, that's when real transformation begins. As I step back and reflect on everything I've learned about fat, I feel a mix of awe and humility. For so long, I only saw it through a narrow lens, something to fear, to hide, or to fight against. But the deeper I dug, the clearer it became. Fat is not just a number on a scale or a layer under the skin. It's a living, essential part of who we are, woven into our biology, our history, and even our future. Here's what strikes me most. Fat tells a story. It's the story of our ancestors surviving harsh winters and long famines, because they could store energy when food was scarce. It's the story of mothers carrying extra reserves so they could nurture new life even in times of hunger. It's the story of how our brains, this incredible organ that defines humanity, were able to grow larger and smarter because we had energy reserves to fuel them. Without fat, we wouldn't be here. That truth is almost impossible to ignore, but fat's story doesn't stop in the past. In today's world, where food is everywhere and abundance is the norm, fat has become a challenge. It's easy to carry too much of it, and when that happens, it can damage our health in ways our ancestors never had to worry about. That's the paradox. What once saved us can now harm us. And so, the lesson isn't to demonize fat or glorify it. The lesson is balance. For me, the takeaway is simple but powerful. I don't have to hate my fat. I don't have to obsess over it or try to erase it completely. Instead, I need to understand it, respect it, and keep it in the range where it supports my life instead of holding me back. That means making choices that honor my body, eating with awareness, moving often, sleeping well, and staying mindful. It's not about perfection. It's about partnership. My fat isn't my enemy. It's part of me, and it deserves balance. The more I embrace this perspective, the freer I feel. No longer am I stuck in the endless cycle of shame and punishment. Instead, I feel empowered, informed, and even grateful. Because when I look at fat now, I don't just see struggle. I see survival, resilience, and possibility. And maybe that's the real gift of learning the truth about fat. It teaches us that our bodies are not broken. They're brilliant. They're designed with systems that carried us through the toughest challenges in history, and they still carry us today. So let me ask you one simple question. Do you see fat as your enemy or as part of your survival story? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your perspective. And if this journey has shifted the way you think about your body, don't forget to subscribe to The Wellness Way. Your support fuels us to keep creating content that challenges myths, sparks curiosity, and helps us all live with more understanding and balance.